Hello. In this video, I'm going to go over the foundations of the plank pose, going over the purpose of it, what it's used for, proper areas of activation, demonstrate proper technique, common errors that I see people making, throw in some modifications to use, a few variations on the pose once you get more advanced with it, and maybe a few tips at the end. So what is plank position? It's a static strength building posture, particularly useful in building straight arm scapular strength, core strength. It's a very transitional pose in a yoga practice. I consider it very foundational. Proper form and technique of a plank pose will transition into many areas of your practice, especially any that focus on the pushing away from the floor. You see it used very transitionally from down dog to plank, plank to chaturanga, and so many other different ones. And this straight arm scapular strength and static strength through the core will really assist you in building a much stronger practice, whether it's yoga, calisthenics, any really body weight focused type of movement practice. So the proper areas of activation for this position will be pushing down as hard as you can into the floor and separating yourself from the ground. You'll have a doming through the upper back. You'll have slight activation in the core. Tuck the tailbone toward the heels, squeeze the glutes, and stay pretty strong through the legs. So I'll demonstrate the posture now and move through all the proper areas to activate. So you want to plank your hands shoulder width apart, stacking the shoulders over top of the wrists. Begin by pushing away from the ground. You'll notice I'm doming through my upper back. From here, slight glute activation. You should be able to feel the activation to the core just by squeezing the glutes. And then you'll extend your feet out, stacking the heels over top of the toes. And this is a proper plank position. You want to maintain that pressure pushing away from the ground, slight core activation, tuck the tailbone toward the heels, stay strong through the legs. You can even start pulling the hands toward each other to activate more to the chest. And then from here, just focus on a solid breath, smooth and relaxed through the nose into the abdomen. A lot of common errors you see with this pose will be retracting through the shoulders, collapsing into the shoulder joint. This isn't good. It's not really helping with your straight arm scapular strength, and it's not a healthy position for the shoulders. So you want to focus on that pushing away, protraction through the shoulders, pushing the ground away, and not collapsing into the joint. Another common error you see is having the hips too high. This is just not an effective pose at building as much strength as a proper plank pose would be. So you want to make sure you have the hip glute squeezed, even push the hips closer towards the floor, have the shoulders stacked over the wrists, and this will be much more effective at building strength than if you have your hips back up here. Also, I often see people relaxed in the core and the glutes and not active in the legs. And this isn't really effective at building any sort of core strength or, learning of the proper technique and form that'll help you with this pose. So you want to make sure to activate through the core, squeeze the glutes, tuck the tailbone toward the heels. The core activation will feel like pulling the navel up towards the spine. You'll definitely feel it if you're doing it right. So again, push yourself as hard as you can away from the floor, pull the hands together, activate the core, squeeze the glutes, point towards the heels. You can have the heels stacked over the toes, stay strong through the legs, and just focus on cultivating a smooth breath through the abdomen, in and out through the nose. You also want to keep your head in a neutral position. Just keep your gaze pointed towards the floor. You don't want to relax into the neck or like crane it up. Just a neutral position will be fine, and it's really safe. So, some modifications for the pose if the full technique is maybe slightly unavailable at the moment. Everything is just the same. All the areas of activation is just the same, except to just have your knees drop toward the ground. How far back you have them is kind of up to you. You can even have them in a tabletop position. You still are activating all the same areas. You can put them, farther back, whatever is appropriate to your level. If this is too much on the wrists also, you can move up onto the fists, which will definitely relieve some pressure on the wrist joints. But, for any modification in the full pose, just focus on proper technique, proper breathing, and you'll eventually have the perfect plank position. So I'll just go through a few variations on the pose that are common. They're good for advancing your practice and building strength in different areas. And variation is always really good for moving outside the box of the standard plank position. So we have a standard high plank. Move into side plank position. One arm plank position. Knee to chest. Forearm plank. There's moving to planche, more planche position, which is just, if you have good shoulder flexibility, just leaning farther past the hands, moving the shoulders farther over the wrists, still maintaining all the same activation areas in all these different variations as you would the standard plank position. If I had one tip to give for this posture, it would be that every single time you're in a plank, tabletop, any variation on plank, is focus on form, focus on the proper areas of activation, focus on your breath every single time you come into it. This way your body builds a memory and a knowledge of this position. So eventually you'll just be coming into it perfect form all the time. And this will be your best way to build the proper strength in this position, which will then translate into many parts of the rest of your practice. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, let me know. I'd love some feedback. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.